Alright. Hey, good evening. Welcome to our workshop here regarding our Clifton Park nonprofit grant application program, otherwise known as the Community Preparedness and Resiliency Fund application. We have 43 applications, requests of $344,000. As expected, we had a very strong response to the program, and many good applications. So before we get too far in, Teresa, if you could just call the roll, I guess. Do that.
Councilwoman Flood? Here. Councilwoman Sandor? Here. Councilman Morelli?
Here.
Councilwoman Wallowitz? Here. Supervisor Barrett?
Here. Would you read the legal notice as it appeared in the gazette?
I will. Town of Clifton Park, County of Saratoga, State of New York, notice of workshop. Please take notice that the town board of the town of Clifton Park will conduct a public workshop on Wednesday, April 27, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the Wood Memorial Meeting Room in the town office building located at 1 Town Hall Plaza, Town of Clifton Park, County of Saratoga, State of New York, to review ARPA grant funds nonprofit applications that have been submitted. And that was in the April 15th Gazette.
Very good, thank you very much. The funds that were allocated for this program were part of our initial allocation of ARPA funds that also included infrastructure projects. The idea behind this program was derived from the fact that a lot of our nonprofits have had many challenges, as we have all experienced. Every entity obviously has experienced many challenges, but our nonprofits who serve many people in Clifton Park and the surrounding area were especially challenged. Their general operations, certainly the visitors here. Certainly they're, come on in. There you go.
I'm sorry.
Fundraising efforts were certainly hampered for many, if not all, of the nonprofits in our area, and I'm sure around the country. And we have a very diverse set of nonprofits within Clifton Park and the surrounding area that serve targeted needs of so many residents of our town, which is why, as a whole, you take the work of all of the nonprofits and what they do, and the positive effect that they have on our town is just tremendous. So how do we help them? Well, we certainly had partnered with the Clifton Park IDA. We had a grant program for businesses due to the expanded costs of trying to operate during the pandemic. PPE and other protective measures were difficult to come by and expensive. So we were able to not only help with donations of those items, but later home test kits and the business grant program, which was meant to offset some of those expenses that our small businesses were experiencing. So this grant program is of a similar nature to help our nonprofits that have been negatively affected by the pandemic. We hope they continue to stay active and return, in many cases, to the level of service that they were providing prior to the pandemic. So that is our hope, and we are certainly believe that an infusion of capital for these nonprofits through the town's program will be helpful as they continue to recover themselves and get back to normal operations. Certainly, no one grant is going to, be the difference maker. But if we can be part of the solution and support the nonprofits in our own way, and then we certainly want to take the opportunity to do that. The other thing that I think was clear to a lot of people is the application was very simple and short, and the reasoning behind that was the same reasoning used for the Clifton Park Community Action Fund program. That smaller nonprofits need help, and and typically smaller nonprofits don't have a professional grant writer on staff. They don't have a large staff. Might be a couple of people, a few people in the office trying to make it work each day. And if we're able to keep the application process short and fairly easy, so it might take 45 minutes or an hour to complete the application process, then that's something that any nonprofit would be able to do. So that's the reasoning behind the fact that we tried to make the application process as easy as possible. As far as tonight is concerned, we've never done something like this before, so this is a new process specific to grants in this respect, but we wanted to make sure that it was a public process throughout, and that's what this workshop is. It's to discuss the allocation of the resources that are made available, and which organizations would be selected for the funding, and obviously the level. Now, I said right off the top we had 43 applications for $344,000. So right there, we're $144,000 short from what was allocated. This program, this nonprofit grant program, took it to the county, and it's been replicated at the county. We have the same situation there. $2 million was allocated for the program for the county, but we have, I think at this point, probably approaching $4 million in requests. So again, strong response of the county as we had here at the town. But again, we expected that, we welcome that, and maybe not everybody gets what they ask for, but if a lot of organizations receive some important assistance, then I think the program can be a success. So with that in mind, we're here tonight. The meeting was noticed, as our clerk read, and at this point, I guess I'll just lead off the discussion. At the last town board meeting, I did mention that we should consider the prospect of allocating additional funds, perhaps another $100,000 towards this program, so we can, again, wouldn't bring us to the point where everybody receives everything that they ask for through the grant process, but gets it closer than where they would have been likely at $200,000. Just provides more opportunity for us to allocate more monies to the grant applicants. So I'll start with that. I mean, because right now there's 200. If we had an agreement to raise it, then we could consider the higher amount and make this process, instead of a two-step process where we make decisions based on 200 and then come back possibly with a higher number. We can certainly make a decision based on the higher numbers tonight if there's support for making that increase. So with that, I'll open it up for discussion on that. If there's support for increasing the total amount, yes.
Where would the $100,000 come from?
As I mentioned the other night, it'd be ARPA funds. Same source as the original 200.
Okay, we had not allocated that total amount with sewer projects and the other projects we voted on. Is that correct?
We allocated funding for improvements to the sewer systems, as well as stormwater, engineering for the replacement of the gas pumps. This program, and I think that was it. It was just over $1,060,000.
Okay.
I mean, I think the councilwoman's question, the total amount was over the 2 years, I think we're getting, is it 4.6 million? Or what was the?
Just shy of 4,
So
like
just shy of
3.9 and change.
So we have, in theory.
So we have 2 now.
2.9.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. I guess I'd like to know if everyone else had, I would use the word adjustments. Some of the applicants asked for, say, 10,000, but I thought maybe 8,000 would do. Or something like that. And then if anyone else had incidences like that, which would, again, reduce that number.
Right. I was thinking the same thing, like, I think some of the applications didn't really follow what the requirements were on there. So some of these maybe not necessarily get anything if we decide. So maybe this 344,000 will be a lot lower once we figure out who gets what. Just a thought.
That's what I was thinking too. If we
Well, it's
adjust,
gonna have to be lower because we've only allocated 200 so far. But your point about reducing individual amounts from the requested amount, yeah, certainly that makes sense. If you have requests that far outstrip what's been allocated, yeah, you're either going to have less organizations receive money, or you're going to have more organizations receive money, but at the level lower than what they asked for.
Yeah.
So, I don't know that any of us really thought that 20 organizations would get 10,000. I'm not sure that.
but quite a few did ask for 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one was 500.
Yeah.
That was the
some of them
lowest
asked,
one.
yes. I guess the other thing I wondered, and I don't know if we made it an issue in the application, is whether or not some of these organizations did receive funds on their own, federal funds on their own, or funds from the county or other towns. Some of the organizations serve Clifton Park, Half Moon, maybe the school district, and I assume Half Moon and the other towns also got ARPA funds. So is there any way of knowing if any of the applicants received funds from another source?
Oh, I'm sure they all receive funds from other sources. Yeah, I'm sure that's the case.
But we said preference will be given to organizations that'll give back to our town, I think, on the application, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Now, that does get a little cloudy too, because, a lot of these organizations do serve Clifton Park residents, they serve Half Moon, they serve people maybe in other counties, so, they're, for most of them, or at least a good portion, their sole focus is not just Clifton Park. So that's definitely the case. Now, that I don't think that's necessarily a negative. because, we're talking grants that are, if we were to spread the grants out amongst as many organizations as possible, each organization, although I'm sure they appreciate the money, it's not a huge infusion of cash for them. So can we look at it that, well, they're getting maybe a smaller amount than what they asked for, and maybe through that process we are considering the percentage of people they service in Clifton Park. There's one organization on here that works with people all over the county. But I know right now they're embarking on a project in Clifton Park. And that might be the only project they do in Clifton Park all year or for the next 5 years. But they are working, I know they're definitely doing something.
So I have a question on the application. We're offering the opportunity to those affected negatively by the pandemic.
Right.
And then at Monday's board meeting, Tom, I think, has said that had been lifted. So for this batch, do they have to be negatively impacted by COVID? Because that's what the application said.
Well, that was the that was what the application states as a threshold or a requirement, however you want to phrase it, for our particular grant program. That's what that refers to.
Okay, so all of these that applied should have told us how they were negatively impacted by COVID.
Yeah, my guess is they all have been. Some mentioned it, I think, more than others, but I'm sure they all have been. I don't think there's been an organization that hasn't been negatively impacted, whether it's an art society that can't do.
Yeah, the whole world has been. The reason I asked
sports
is,
programs.
like, if organizations knew ahead of time that you didn't have to say you were negatively affected, we would have had 100,000 applications, like a lot more.
Well, based on the source of the funding that we're using and the fact that we want to help nonprofits that were negatively affected by the pandemic, it did make sense to have that as a requirement, or at least something that should be factored into the decision-making process. So
will
that
it
was
be the
really
same like the next go around? Will it still be the same application, the same thought?
I'm not sure there will be a next go around. Yeah. This ARPA funding, I think, is a one-time thing. Who knows? So based on how the program is structured now, using ARPA funds, right now, I would say it's a one-time program. Everybody that's asked me about that, I've told them, no, I wouldn't expect this to happen again next year or in the future. May or may not, but I certainly wouldn't count on it.
To your point, and I'm guessing what Tom meant is the rules around use of ARPA have evolved since I think we first started talking about this in July of last year. The
Right.
restrictions around municipalities using ARPA funds has significantly loosened up from when we first, started discussing and authorized and put together our application. So it's a good point. I'm not sure what we do with the point, but it's a definitely a valid point.
Yeah, because I think there would be a lot more organizations that wouldn't have applied had they known that,
Yeah, but the rules regarding use of ARPA funds has nothing to do with our
program.
guidelines that we selected for the program. The two were separate and distinct. The rules that Tom was referring to is strictly how the funds can be used. In the beginning of the ARPA program, there was voluminous amounts of material that we went through and analyzed and we didn't hire any consultants here, but I know other organizations hired consultants to help them understand what is a proper use of ARPA funds. And, at that point, when we made our initial allocation of a little over $1 million, we were doing it based on the rules that were in place at that time. And that's why, well, I think it's important we stick to infrastructure with regard to those funds as much as possible anyway. But infrastructure was an allowable use, so that was our focus with the first allocation of funding. Was, hey, let's spend it on infrastructure. We should spend it on infrastructure anyway, and it's allowed through the rules. Now there aren't any rules, so that's the change. But that has nothing to do with our application and the factors that we employ to as part of the program. And I think that remains to this day, should be an important part of this program, is the fact that they were negatively affected by the pandemic. But as I said before, I can't imagine too many of these organizations weren't negatively affected by the pandemic in various ways, but particularly fundraising, outreach, the ability to serve the audience that they serve on a regular basis. You start thinking about the operations of a nonprofit across the board, and every aspect of how they did things was affected. Some of these organizations specifically deal with folks that are the most susceptible to a virus like COVID, and they had to be extremely careful, and had to, change the way they did things. They had to spend more money on PPE in some cases if they weren't able to get it for free somewhere. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I think everybody was negatively affected. And like I said, some may have described it better than others with their application.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they took it for granted that we should know that, or what, but yeah, some were better in explaining their situation and providing more information than others. So my question still stands on the additional funds. What I can do, maybe to push this conversation a little further, in looking at how things might look with a higher amount of funding, and again trying to help as many organizations as possible that are working in our community each day. I did put together a spreadsheet that totaled $291,305. There were only 2 organizations that I did not have listed as receiving funding, and I think there were few possibly, that did get what they asked for, but it was either 500 or 1,000. So they were on the lower end. As you saw, I would say most of the requests were the max amount of 10,000. But there were a few that were 1,000. We had one that was 500. Yeah. So basically with this, there were 2 organizations that I didn't have funded at all. That was Half Moon Celebrations Association and Lives Made Easier. And reasoning behind that was, Half Moon puts on some great programs like we do, and I know that the application was mentioning that, people from other towns go to their events. Well, that's certainly the case with ours as well. And the Lives Made Easier, I don't have any first or second-hand knowledge of the organization, and their application was very limited. So I really couldn't get a good feel for the organization and how they do things. Now, they were based out of Schenectady, so I don't know if they have people that they work with in Clifton Park or not, but they weren't based here. And it was not a prerequisite that you had to be based in Clifton Park to submit an application. And the remainder of the organizations did receive funding. Most obviously didn't receive everything they wanted, but some did. And so I just tried to fairly put it together as best you can. Now, I also did one based on 200,000, and obviously that 100,000 makes, or $91,305 makes a big difference, because for all the organizations that were funded, they all received more money than they otherwise would have. So that's where I had things. If anybody else has any other thoughts, if you have any questions on where I had a particular individual organization.
On the one you did for the 200,000, was it still only 2 that received no money?
Right.
But some received lesser amounts than
Yes.
10,000.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
right.
I had quite a few of those.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I actually had 4 no's, but I agree with the 2 you chose. There were 2 that I had chosen.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want that to reflect that, anything negative view of those 2 organizations. But those were the reasoning behind my, not having funding for those 2. What were the other 2 that, if you don't mind me asking?
They're not here. Art of.
Wait, you're able to first.
The
You
art
don't have
of.
to say it.
We're from Shen Growing.
Oh, good.
Okay, the Art of Life Mindfulness Center in Holland Funham. And the others were the 2 that you mentioned.
Oh, okay. Now, what was the other one? I'm sorry.
Art of Life
Oh, Art of Mindfulness, yes.
Center.
Yes,
It's at a local church,
yes.
which I do, support that church certainly. But it was, a lot of marketing, printing booklets and things like that. So I don't know if it really had anything to do with COVID. But it looks like, other than the way they were going to use the funds, or they described the way they were going to use the funds, maybe that's what bothered me. Was that on your list too?
Yeah, it was definitely some unique ways of trying to work with people to help them because they've had difficulties due to the pandemic, whether they be personal or professional. So I don't know. It's definitely different. It's a different way of doing things.
Yeah, it's a lot different than anything anybody else was doing too.
That's true.
And like I said, I'm familiar with the church, so I don't think that they're trying to pull anything.
Oh, no, I don't think so. It's a great church.
But I can flex on that one.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's a great church. And, I guess you would expect the church to be, considering options to help people that do deal with their spiritual being. And I think that's I haven't
The
gone
way
through
you
the
interpret
program,
it,
but
yeah.
that's the way I interpreted that they're trying to, you know, give somebody the tools and additional thoughts and ideas on how to work on their spiritual being. That's how I took it. I could be wrong, but that's how I took it. Now it's interesting you brought up the Holland Fund hat. That is an organization that Ms. Kastner does live in Rexford, and she and other families have people within their family, children from what I could gather, their children are very high need disabilities. And unfortunately, their loved ones are rejected from other day programs.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so I think there was like 9 day programs that they were rejected from because their loved one does not fit
In
the
that
service
category,
that's
yes, I
provided.
can understand that.
Yeah. So what they're attempting to do is create a new opportunity for these people with high need, and a day program for them, where they'll be able to go and it's catered toward them. It won't be instead of something where they apply and they may or may not be accepted. It'll be made for them. So with them in mind right up front. There are I believe, fair number of families in town and in the area that,
Yes, I can believe that.
So they are fairly new, and they are looking to really get their fundraising going. They've been off a couple of years due to COVID.
Yeah, maybe that's why I wasn't familiar, I hadn't heard before.
They've been
yeah,
pushed back. Their efforts have been really thwarted the last 2 years, and the
Okay.
plans that they had just haven't come to fruition. So they were hoping that there was some financial support that would allow them to jumpstart and get going.
Okay,
So if that provides some additional,
it does.
I had them down at 2,500.
I think that's, yeah, that's appropriate. And, hopefully we'll hear more about them and their activities and what they planned are throughout the next year.
Yeah, and that's, that process, the process certainly doesn't end tonight. So no matter what we allocate, no matter what we, at least initially put together for a plan here, there is a process of having each organization submit their paperwork, valid nonprofits, and also, we want to kind of keep tabs on how they're doing.
Yes, well, that's kind of what I said, I go, maybe we hear more about them, and
Yeah.
everybody will be more familiar with them, and maybe be willing to help them out in some other way, except financially. I'm sure that they will need instructors and help in a place.
Yeah, and on using the higher number of 291,305, I did have a number of organizations that with $10,000 as they requested, including crew. On the lower amount that we have currently allocated, let's see, 7. Yeah, and that was true of a lot of, typically it might be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 or less in the lower amount.
So what would it be on your 200,000 if we stuck to what we were going to do?
For which one?
Just for Shen Crew, just as an example.
7,000.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So a little difference, yeah. Basically, just shaved off, money from each allocation based on the larger number.
We want to take a look at the Shen Crew application. We have, are all four of you from Shen Crew?
Kansas.
Yes.
Maybe just fast track that in the event, maybe want to provide some more info.
I think that would be good.
Do you row in Kansas?
Her and I committed to row Division One.
Oh, great. Kansas or
I'm
somewhere else?
going to Kansas and she's going to Long Island.
Nice, nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
No, it's a great program, and I know there's a lot of challenges with the program because, you know, I don't think any sport works harder than crew because you have to raise a lot of money. It's not an inexpensive sport. So you have to do your own fundraising, support the programs yourself. The parents do a lot of work, and we understand that, so. Yeah.
It's hard.
But the results have been fantastic when you see that there was so many kids and parents I've talked to over the years that it was an incredibly rewarding experience. And then when you see, you know, these two ladies move on and a college career in the same sport, you know, that's tremendous. So congratulations.
You guys don't get any money from Shen, is that accurate?
Correct.
Correct. My daughter rode for Shen Crew for many years,
Oh,
yeah. It's very expensive.
Good crew.
So, yeah, so we're available if you have any questions.
Well, I'm very familiar with the program, obviously, Amy Blood is as well, and I'm sure everybody's got some familiarity.
What sort of events do you guys normally have that you weren't able to hold during the pandemic?
From a fundraising point of view, and I know Supervisor Barrett attended our last function, we had a dinner and silent auction in Glenville, and that used to raise $25,000 for us. So that's been canceled 2 years in a row, so that's put a big hole in our budget. Our expenses are up due to the bus driver shortage, so we used to contract with the Shen Transportation to bring our kids from the campus to the boathouse, which is in Aplos. But our costs, we've had to run vans, and our parents have to be bus drivers part-time now to get our kids from school to practice. So our costs are up, our revenue from raising revenue is down. We're doing our flower sales, which you're probably familiar, and we're going to be doing SPAC this summer. We're hoping to raise $10,000 there. But, you know, it's very hard. Sponsorships, you know, businesses just don't have the extra money to sponsor or donate gift cards even.
Yeah.
It's been very hard.
And how many scholarships do you guys normally give out? I know you referenced.
Oh, the Rose Assistance Program, it's based on need. So I think right now we might have 1 or 2 students that get partial tuition discounts. We allocate $5,000 a year to that program.
That goes towards the cost of rowing or for higher education?
It's so we can participate in our program. So it costs for a high school rower, it's $295 a month tuition. That pays for both us and the coaches and everything else. And then for the middle schoolers, it's $185 a month.
Does that pay for the transportation, or is that?
Yes, it's
Okay. Oh, good.
pays for the vans, insurance, regatta entry fees, all that stuff.
And how many total participants do you have in the program, approximately?
We have 65 right now.
Right.
Our numbers are low, about half are high school and about half are middle school.
Oh, only half are high school.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the numbers are down.
about 35 high school.
Well, but again, that goes back to, you know, a lot of these organizations that we talk to, their numbers are down, participation is down. Some people are still, you know, very concerned about the virus and won't go to public events, won't go to a meeting, you know, so we understand that. So, yeah, and the nice thing is too that athletes that go on to higher education, they're a lot of times able to get money from the school for doing that. So, so there are rewards on the other end for some kids as well, which is nice.
But, you know, my son will not be going to college for rowing, but he benefits social,
Yeah.
physical. He used to be very out of shape, and now he's very fit, very nutritious, nutrition conscious or whatever. And you know, he's gained so much from the program.
Yeah.
Benefits are just,
Yeah.
other than college, which is great, because a lot of our young women go,
Yeah.
you know, they go off to scholarships. Last year we had about 5 or 6 girls get scholarships,
Yeah.
I think. Some of our guys do too, but the men's rowing's obviously, it's a little bit more difficult because of Title IX and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
for our young women, that's fantastic. If you can really work hard, and as Maria said, work on nutrition, study, your opportunities for scholarships are boundless. So it's huge.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, sure is. I think participation in any sport teaches somebody a whole heck of a lot on a lot of levels. And as a father of 2 Division I soccer players, I can tell you it's very challenging. So you'll get good at time management. So all right, great.
Appreciate you guys coming in.
Yeah.
Talking
Thank
about
you.
it.
thanks for listening to us.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Go, Jay.
Do you want us to stay or?
Oh, sure, you can stay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Should we
Yeah, I
say?
feel like.
All right. You say what they have.
They are dedicated. So anyway, were there any others that you wanted to discuss individually, or?
No, I'm not sure that we want to get down to each of us giving our, you know, let's reduce the amount, because we'll be here for 4 hours. I had just a couple of questions, and you may know Mohawk Towpath, which we support.
Yep.
And we love, but their last sentence said that this is in conjunction with another grant they received.
Mhm.
So that kind of confused me. I didn't know, they asked for $10,000. And they wanted, as I recall, mostly to do publicity, more flyers and more publicity about the trail. So I was thinking about reducing the 10 because I didn't understand about the combination of the grant, the other grant, but they didn't indicate how much other the grant was.
Did they get a community action fund grant? I don't remember. We had a couple dozen organizations. I can't.
Yeah, I know, there's a
They
couple
probably
others here
were.
that, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also, yeah, the community action also gave to the State Food Pantry, who needs a lot of equipment. But I put that in my reduction column. They did get community action fund money.
Yep, yep.
Um,
Good luck now.
Cool.
Take care.
Thank you for coming. Yeah, so I didn't know about the towpath. I certainly support all our hiking and our trails.
Yeah.
But I had that question.
Well, they do spend a lot of money on outreach and marketing. Because when, you know, obviously if people are not, if they're not aware of the towpath and the history, you know, something to draw them in, you know,
Yeah, I was wondering if we could be more help there.
Oh, I'm sure we can. Sure.
Yeah, I don't know how much help, you know, we can do to adjust that, but that, yeah, that was one of my, questionable,
Mhm.
The St. Peter's Foundation, which sounds like an organization that probably brings in millions of dollars a year, but after looking at their foundation, their application, I'm sure it must not be. But they did indicate that they took a huge loss during COVID,
Oh, yeah.
due to staff, things. They also asked for 10,000, and then I didn't have a clue on how to even answer that.
Well, they did do a good job of listing the services that they provide to Clifton Park residents
Yeah, they did.
here at their facilities.
Yes,
So they.
and
they
then
did
I
a
know
very
that they had a reduction. Well, they had to be closed for a while, and they lost staff.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, they indicated a lot of staff losses and losses. I don't know, was that in your rule?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. No, based on the services that they offer, and, you know, obviously our healthcare systems are valuable. I had them at 8,000 on the higher number. On the
Okay, so
291.
you did reduce it from the 10?
Yep.
Okay, I can live with that.
But again, that's the higher number.
Yeah.
Higher total number. On the 200,000, I had them at 5.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I had to. Okay,
So if there's interest in pursuing the larger number, is there a approval for that? Is there, everybody, any thoughts?
I think the larger number does resolve a lot of the issues we have on who to choose.
Does a larger number mean everybody's getting what they asked for?
No.
The 291, 305.
Yeah, even at that number, no. Personally, I just had those 2 organizations with 0, everybody else received something.
I would like never to have to do this again. This was extremely difficult. And I think we all spent hours on it.
Well, I think
And
if
you
we,
certainly want to help everyone. And, you know, I separated stacks and moved stacks frequently. And, you know, it was a very, very difficult thing to have to do. And I know they're all deserving, but, yeah, that was hard.
yeah, well, there's no doubt. I mean, you'd love to give everybody everything they ask for. But as I said in the beginning of the meeting, I think if we're able to at least provide a share of funding to most or just about all of the organizations at a lower level than what they asked for, based on the fact that the requests outstrip the allocation. I think we can walk away from this process saying that we've invested significantly in dozens of important nonprofits in our community, whether they're providing athletic opportunities or healthcare or the Shen Bountiful Backpack Program, you know, helping our kids that,
Yes.
you know, the Faith Food Pantry. I know the very important food pantry in town. They've had some issues with equipment. And obviously churches have been maybe hit as hard as anybody with the pandemic. To Love a Child, you look what they're doing. Very, very good stuff. You know, VFW Post. I know they're very active trying to grow their ranks, and you know, they've been here before telling us about the great things that they do down at the VA.
Yeah, I think the levels are.
But they can't do their poppy, they haven't done a poppy drive in a couple of years, and, you know, just their typical fundraising. Helping Hand School, which is a huge part of our community, helping many kids. So, yeah, you go through them and you say, gee, you know, they're all very important in their own way. But if we can walk away saying, hey, we took a significant amount of money for a municipality, and we helped dozens of organizations to the best we could and to a large extent of what they asked for. I think we can walk away and say that was a success.
Yeah, a lot more realistic in what they asked for.
Yeah.
And most of them, I think we're all familiar with.
Yeah, there's a few that I wasn't. But.
Yeah.
And I would agree with Councilman Lowell. I think increasing by 100,000 still puts us, that's still less than 10% of the overall grant the town has gotten. And, you know, we've approved some areas already. I know there's some ideas for other areas, but you know, some of the areas we put money towards are important, but they don't touch our residents as much as we might like to. And, you know, this touches, like, the young ladies that were here earlier. I think, you know, to me, those are the ones that really were affected by the pandemic, and those are the ones we really want to help. So I would support, you know, putting some more money in there so that we can do more and actually get some money out to some people that we can see and see benefit from this, notwithstanding the other important projects that we've already approved. But, you know, I like the idea of seeing some people benefit from it, especially young people.
Yep, and, you know, many of these organizations do directly service young folks. Some only younger folks. So,
In my head, I kind of want to see like what you have allocated for each one based on the 291 and based on the 200. You know what I mean? Like what?
Yeah, well, I'll
How
pass
much
this
less they
out.
would
This
get,
is the 291, 305 level that I did. So this was my crack at it. And again, everybody receives funding except for the two that I mentioned. And I think it's done fairly and equitably based on, you know, the size of the organization, the size of the request. You know, I tried to take that into account as well. So.
Do you have the other one for the 200,000?
No. Oh, yeah, I did. I don't know if I have an extra copy of that. Oh, yeah. Okay, there's the 200. So, yeah, like you see, like the first two, instead of 6 on the larger number, I have them at 5. The next organization, instead of 10, I have them at 7. Next organization, instead of 10, they're at 7. And it kind of follows that same pattern all the way through. It's just a little less for obvious reasons.
So if we do the 200 and we don't increase it by the 91,000,
Right.
that 91,000 can be used for other town projects with the ARPA money, and now there's no restrictions?
Yep. Right. you have any planned fundraisers coming up?
So we're doing the flower sales right now.
Mhm.
That ends today, and we're gearing up for the summer stack season. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but we basically work the stack concession stand. So they have a lot of concerts that were canceled, so they have a big schedule this year. So we're hoping
Good.
that's a good one for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're still trying to get regattas on Mohawk. We held our first one last year, July 30th, Electric City Sprints. So we're still trying to grow that as a driver of revenue.
That's a tough 15-hour day on all the parents.
Yeah.
It's a rough one, but it's fun. I mean, watching the kids, we were in the boats.
Yeah.
The launches, and you're watching your kid. Usually you can't see them go by because rolling's a tough sport to watch.
Right.
But I was lucky enough to get out launch, and I just watched them go by.
Yeah.
It's an amazing opportunity to just see it up close. They work so hard. It's crazy.
Yeah.
They work so hard.
We were able to go to Boston this
That was
fall,
awesome.
head of the Charles. So
Oh, that's
yeah.
nice.
That was awesome.
Yeah, so that was fun.
And you have to qualify for that, so you just don't get in. You have to, well, you know, qualify a certain percentage of races and stuff, and you can go to that. So
It's a premier event, right?
it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It was very cool.
So I get very excited about this stuff.
That's okay. That's okay.
So looking through this, my opinion is I like the allocations that you have put together for the $200,000 that we've already allotted. Personally, I would prefer to not increase money to nonprofits by the $91,000 and that we have that conversation, whether it's another nonprofit program or whether we choose to spend it on some other town project, infrastructure or recreation or trails or something else. But that's how I feel. The $200,000 list looks pretty good to me.
I agree. I feel like most of these organizations, the way you have it broken up, I like what you did. Most of them are only down 1,000 or a couple thousand, and they're getting a large chunk. So something's better than nothing. I don't think when people necessarily apply for it, they think they're going to get 10 grand off the bat. They know that we want to try to spread the wealth, I'm sure. So I would like to stick to our original plan.
Yeah, and looking at the list, like the, mostly agreeable on the same ones that I reduced, but then I had others that I looked at reducing too, because I was trying to get it. I think I came to 197, even messing with it as much as I did. And like I said, though, I had 4 no's, which I did not put in. It just, like I said, it was extremely disturbing, and $10,000 is a lot. It was very, very difficult to do, and I would like to see us maybe reduce more and keep it in line. Are we gonna do community action again?
Oh, yeah.
That gives our locals more, another opportunity.
And a lot of these organizations probably apply to the county too, right? Doesn't the county have ARPA funds?
Yeah, I brought this program to the county. We have 2 million allocated for the county program. I can't tell you how many applied to the county program. I would imagine there's probably some duplication, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't gone through this process at the county yet. We will be doing that hopefully in the next few weeks.
I think both your breakdowns are appropriate for the respective amounts. I understand. So my view, as I stated, would be increase it. I thought that's where you were landing on too, where you said suggesting.
No, I was
stays.
just concerned where it was coming from and, yeah, talking how very difficult it was even at this level. Yeah, I'd like.
I also did.
I'd like to get something to everybody, but unfortunately, we got more applications than we had money.
Right.
And I had a lot more that I reduced than I awarded the full amount, on my terms, because I was trying to keep it at that level. I would hope that they would be grateful for lesser.
So you're on the, keep it as is, and
It's just, there's so many things we can do with that $100,000. And, this was a good idea, but it got out of, I want to say it got out of hand, but yeah, we got a whole lot more than we expected, and a whole lot more than I thought. I think asked for a lot more. If you say that the cap is $10,000, yeah, that's what they're going to ask for, and I'm not sure that that's appropriate. But I think. Was this difficult for you?
Yeah.
Difficult?
no, it's like you really want to, I mean, everyone, or, 90% of the applications put together a good story. Because it is a good story, a good story.
Yeah,
But,
it was horrible,
they,
yeah.
demonstrate a need, and I think we all get that. But, so if that's where we're landing, then I think, I think your breakdowns, even for the 200 are appropriate. I wouldn't have any modifications.
I also did one for 250 as well, which was kind of in the middle of those two. So it was basically prorated the same way, just the amounts were a little higher.
Mhm.
So, but if there's no, but it all depends if we're interested in increasing the amount. I would increase the amount to the 291,305 because I think the use of that extra $91,000 will be extremely beneficial to all of these organizations. We have, like I said, we've allocated, including the 200, we've allocated just a little over $1 million of the $4 million that we received half. We'll get the other half this summer. So at the last town board meeting, I gave some ideas as to other areas that I think the money can be spent, such as additional paving and other
Mhm.
infrastructure.
Yeah, I think that
we
there,
need,
yeah.
we need to. So, but
Some
even
things in
that,
common,
but
yeah.
even though, I think I had 1.3 for paving, and 1.3 million, and then spending on other things, and it still did not exhaust the funds that were either received or will be received. So it's up to you, Linda. Looks like. Not to-
Thanks a lot,
Not to
Bill.
put the pressure on you, but.
Yeah, no pressure there. No, it's just, again, looking at the ones that I gave you.
But if you look at the breakdown of the 200,000, which was the original plan we stuck to, like most of the groups that asked for 10,000 are getting $7,000. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money that they didn't have before. Like I said, just because you fill out an application and you want 10,000 doesn't mean you should automatically get 10,000. When we have all these applications and we're trying to help everybody.
Well, understood, and obviously, if demand outstrips supply, you're not gonna be able to give everybody what they want, and I'm not saying we do that. But we can have a program, I think, that is that much more, we'll say 33% more impactful, if we go with a larger number. And, with these organizations, with many of them, what they would receive is significant. But with a larger number, it'll make that much more of a difference.
Just looking closely at the ones that I had gone full amount.
Sure.
I think also may have money coming from other sources if they pass.
Well, I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure most of them, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, they wouldn't be able to operate just on a one-time
You
plan.
know, I think, you know, Councilwoman Flood is kind of right in a way. It kind of eases their mind as we went through this and went through this and went through this, separating all this out. It is kind of an ease of mind that the $200,000 alternatives gives more to more people, even though it's a lesser amount, which kind of takes the stomach ache away from all the work that we've done, working hours on this and trying to decide who's the fairest in the land. You know, it kind of is easier on the conscience and the mind, I think, to stick with the 200,000, even though they'll get lesser amounts. That I'm looking at it, I think some of them may have other resources, especially the ones that serve countywide and serve several towns.
Some of them are national organizations too.
Yes. Well, that's, if each town is doing the same thing, and I don't know that they are. Some of them do really do great work.
I don't know of any other town that's doing it.
Like they're going to do this again.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I think Councilwoman Flood made a good point. Yeah.
I mean, I stand
Yeah,
by my statement, but I understand where you stand.
All right, well, I think.
I really think, you know, it was a nice gesture to Supervisor Barrett to say,
Yeah.
oh my God, let's not turn anybody away and let's do something for everyone, but add money. But I think like I said, ease our conscience, everybody gets a large amount of money that they would not have had we not done this at all. So I think that the councilwoman was right there. If the other towns are doing it, we didn't have to either. So I think everybody gets something out of this. And we stick to the plan and find something else to do with the extra money and not do this again, except for the community action plan.
Yeah.
At which time, these same people will come forward again, because I recognize a lot of these.
Yes.
So thank you, Amy, that helped.
Yeah, and the awards through that program obviously are a lot smaller. I mean, we're talking about
Yes.
maybe $17,000 as opposed to 200. So, you know, the awards are much smaller.
But like I said, if we hadn't offered it, they wouldn't have anything, so we
Well,
did good.
I mean, I guess there's a lot of things we don't have to do, but we're continuing to find new ways to support our community, make it the best possible place it can be. And if we can help with different programs and funding to directly benefit the residents of Clifton Park, obviously we should do that. And this is, I think, a great way to do it. Community action funds been very successful.
Yes,
So.
and I think we'll see a lot of these same applicants back.
Yeah.
And the 91,000 we can put into projects that will still benefit our community.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, people that are even applying for this, it'll still help them.
Okay, very good. Well, like I said, you know, whether it's 200, I did 3 lists, 200, 250, and 291, 305. Either list, I think, is, I think we can call a successful program. I prefer going the largest amount, because this is kind of a one-time program. And we have the opportunity to make, I think, the most significant impact possible. But based on comments, it appears the 200 list has the most support. So with that being said, I'll entertain a motion to approve the listing for the 200,000 that was passed out.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
To be clear, rowing at 7,000 on your list?
But
Yeah.
7.
I just want you guys to have closure when you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
All right, great. If no further comment,
Councilwoman Flood,
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard.
Yes.
Councilman Morelli,
Yes,
Councilwoman Wallowitz. Supervisor Barrett.
yes.
and
The one thing I didn't check, this is a workshop and we're making recommendations. It was a noticed meeting, so it is a public meeting, but we might need to pass a resolution just basically stating what we just passed here.
That's
But
what I
I'll check on that just to make sure.
and then once we do that, what's the thought on issuing the checks?
Well, once the amounts are officially approved, we will contact all of the organizations via letter, tell them what was approved and the information that we request back. And that process will probably take a little bit of time. And then we'll issue the checks. All right, very good. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Flood.
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard.
Yes.
Councilman Morelli.
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowitz. Yeah. Supervisor Barrett.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you guys again for coming.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you all, we really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.